The streets are talking. You are now listening to The Box Out, tri-state area basketball talk at its best. And now your hosts, Kahlil Thomas and Jason Cordner. Let's get it.
NJ2BK and the world. This is The Box Out here on the Just Who Talk YouTube channel. Kahlil Thomas joining me as always. Busy Jay, Jason Cordner. What's popping, Jay?
Not much, man. How you feeling?
You feeling good? Our opening tip, I want to start with something very simple. All right. Out the box, easy question. Did Nikola Jokić seal up the NBA MVP this past week?
I think so. I think he definitely sealed it up with especially with his performance in the first quarter after last night's game. I think it's a clear cut. He's done enough to pass Embiid, and if you want to put Chris Paul in the running, I think he's too far out in the back. I think it's a two-man race, and I think the Joker is that much ahead of Embiid right now.
So here's the issue with the Jokic thing, and I hate when people say this because it's everyone's go-to. This season don't count. It's like, well, it's not a full season, it's only like 72 games and blah, 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 blah. If you look at his numbers, he's the MVP. Not to mention, and Bill Simmons made a good point, he's played every single game this season. So while Embiid missed time, LeBron missed time, Giannis has missed a couple games, whether it be he got hurt or load management, let's be honest. Jokic's been in all and since Jamal Murray went down, I think Jokic's game gotten better since Jokic went down. He's carrying more of the scoring load and he's being more aggressive. I've noticed that he's being a lot more aggressive since Murray went down. So it's good for him. It's good for the team. With that being said, he's definitely the MVP, but I'm not used to guys not being first or overall in the conference not getting MVP. Well, that's the other question. Do you think the Nuggets being kind of, I don't want to say middle of the pack, but kind of being in the mix and not being that clear cut number one, number two, do you think that hurts him when it comes to votes?
I think it hurts him a little bit. And between that and the way they exited the Western Conference Finals as well, not really putting up a fight against the Lakers. So I think those things hinder him a little bit, but I think he's done enough to win the MVP for sure.
26 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. He's almost at triple-double numbers. I think it's a few games left. Do you think he can hit triple-double?
If he really applied himself, he can. You know what? I'll go on record. I think he will get a triple-double in one of these last 7, 8 games he has left.
To bump it up a little bit. Yeah. Because he's I believe he is almost 2 assists away from averaging a triple-double for the season. If any indication from when I think our first year we did the show, and Westbrook got his triple-double average, and they just gave Westbrook the MVP. I think if past history says anything, it should be his.
Yeah, agreed.
If he hits a triple-double number.
Now, is it safe to say that he's the best skilled center right now in the league?
Has a center? Yes. I feel like the positions are not really set in stone anymore.
Right.
So center, yes. Big man, I think you gotta even Luka. Here's the problem with Luka's got a big man too. Would you put Luka at the all NBA is gonna be difficult because you don't know who to put where.
Yeah.
Like Luka should be a guard, but he can be a forward too. Jokic is a center, so obviously he'll be a center. I feel like as a big man, yes, but if you go Luka, if you go Giannis as a big dude, it's kind of questionable right now.
Yeah,
and I think that's the NBA's fault because there needs to be some set positions now because we don't have that.
Yep.
We're going to talk about the playoff positioning a little bit later. I don't think much is updated. The West is done. We can talk about the East. The West is essentially a done deal. They got their 1 through 10 set. I do want to talk about LeBron James complaining about the play-in tournament. Luka did it before because I think the Mavericks were in that 7 spot. The Lakers could drop the 7.
Yep.
And now LeBron start bitching and moaning about that. Is it just the fact that he doesn't want to play in it? Is it or does he really have a legitimate case to kind of complain and bitch and moan?
I think he just doesn't want to play in it. And I think teams are starting to realize they could get bumped. This one and done kind of college thing, they can get bumped, and it's kind of scary. Like no one wants that on the resume, especially not a LeBron James, not a Luka. It was all good when Memphis lost last year because it's Memphis. But now you have something like Dallas or the Lakers. Nobody wants to see Steph in a shootout for one game for all the marbles.
Well, Candace Parker made a good point on Tuesday that the Lakers lost 2 game ones in the playoffs last year.
That is true. Forgot about that.
So in a play-in situation, you lose game 1. I mean, you lose game 1, you can still kind of come back and win game 2 to get that 8 seed. But if you lose that 9-10 matchup, if you lose that, that do or die game, you're out. So if they're not ready, and honestly, LeBron's out again. Obviously, the ankle's not 100%. AD doesn't look great. You can tell he's still kind of getting that rust off. The Lakers could be that team that either you don't want to see, or if you're in a play-in tournament, that you do want to see because they're not completely 100%.
I just realized this play-in tournament is exposing 2 things. One, it's helping the teams like, the 8, 9, 10, 11 feel like they don't have this initial tank, but they can still play for something. But it's also making those teams that, like the Lakers, who felt like, well, if we slide to 7 or 8, as long as we're in, we'll be all right. Oh, wait a minute. We actually have to play our way in. That could be problematic, like you said, losing all those game 1. So it's one of those things where, like, the teams that's on the bubble, we're like, wait a minute, why we got to play these extra games? But it's good for the league. I think it's good for the league. LeBron was on the line about the whole someone should be fired thing. This is great. It makes for great competitive basketball.
Well, also, it makes these last couple of weeks worth something.
Yeah.
If 1 through 8, right now, if you look at the standings, 1 through 7 is pretty much set in stone. 8, 9, 10 is kind of a toss-up. And the seeding's going to change. New Orleans is trying to make a run. They're about 2 games back at Golden State for 10. But it adds something to this. Usually the last 2 weeks, we're just like, okay, so, let's do some playoff previews, I guess. Like, we run out of things to talk about. Now there's something to talk about because we have these teams that New Orleans is trying to make that run. We got to keep an eye on New Orleans. The Lakers are a game ahead in the loss column for Portland to get the 7 spot. So Portland wins, Lakers lose. Portland jumps to 6, Lakers are off. So I feel like there's so much more to talk about. And it makes these last few games, even though the Knicks are playing on the West Coast and going to get the ass kicked, worth something.
And, like we said earlier in the season, like no one believed in Utah, and they stockpiled all those wins at the beginning of the season. So now you look at a team like Washington, who mounted so many losses early on. They're not even an 8th seed, but everyone is afraid to play them. So there you go.
Well, also, I mean, I think Candace Parker also made a point, too, about how even with the Lakers being in a play-in tournament, they get through the tournament. Utah, Phoenix, they don't want to see them first round. You don't want to see the Lakers till later. Yeah. I'm like, if the Lakers are able to kind of get out of that play-in and they get a Utah, if the Lakers are 8 and Utah's 1, Utah's not winning that series. That might be a 5-game series. So
we'll see. I think the Lakers should do whatever it takes to avoid the Suns in the first round. That's problems right there.
Well, 7-3 in their last 10. I really do think the Suns I think they're the only team right now in the West that can legitimately give the Lakers trouble.
Not the Clippers?
No, not the Clippers. Obviously not the Jazz. Denver could have had it, but now Murray's out. So I think that's not happening. But I think Phoenix is the only team that can put that work in against the Lakers right now in the West. In the West. Okay. So we'll see what happens. Xavier Phillips checking in. What's going on, X? What's happening? My best man in my wedding. It's good. We'll do a playoff check-in right now. Like we said, 1 through 10 has not changed at all. Utah, Phoenix, Denver, Clippers, Dallas, Lakers, 1 through 6. Your 7 through 10, your play-in will be Portland 7, Memphis 8, Golden State 9, San Antonio 10. and you have New Orleans about a game and a half behind San Antonio for number 10. I ask this question every week. I'll ask it again. Do you see New Orleans catching San Antonio?
No, I think they're too far out. I think the Knicks will probably help them at the conclusion of the road trip, but Pop's going to get them in. Especially Pop. He was prideful. He missed the 1 year he missed in the bubble last year. So now I think he's going to get everything going. They're going to get in. They're going to get into the play-in tournament, and they're going to lose to the Warriors. Either way, I don't know what the Pelicans want to get in. They're going to lose to the Warriors as well.
And it's funny because we talked about this last year about the play-in and how this was
essentially
it was for Pelicans. It was for Zion to get in. And for the second year in a row, they're not going to get in. So the apparatus you put in place to get Zion Williamson in, and he's not going to get in again. It's like, come on. Like, NBA is like, you got to be joking right now.
And this time I'm blaming on Stan Van Gundy.
I mean, the worst coach in NBA by far. You got to put it on him. The bigger question is right now, Lakers up a game in the loss column on Portland for that 6th spot. Lakers aren't playing well. LeBron's going to miss the next couple games. The question is, not only do the Lakers, do they fall to 7, do they stay at 7?
I'm going to go one better. I think they're going to stay at 7. I think LeBron plays probably the Knicks game. I think he plays against the Knicks. And then I think he shuts it down to the play-in game.
And right now, they got the 7. If Portland overtakes them, they get the 7. They would get Memphis in that first-round play-in game, which they'll be Memphis.
Memphis and guarantee themselves the 7th seed. So
I think if they lose, I think Memphis is scary. Where I feel like it takes one good game. It takes a Ja Morant crazy game, which he can do, to beat them. Plus, I feel like, is it me or does Memphis have that old school grindhouse? Like, it feels like Zach Randolph, Marc Gasol. It feels like that again.
They can play that style, yep.
And I feel like against a team like the Lakers, especially some of these finesse teams in the West, because when we talk about the Western Conference, a little bit more finesse than the East. Against some of these upper echelon finesse teams, I think that grindhouse style worked, and it worked for Memphis before, and I think it's starting to work again.
Yeah, I guess that could be problematic, but I just think the Lakers bigs will just dominate them. I think Drummond, AD, and then a gimpy LeBron will be enough to get past that play-in game.
So a gimpy LeBron beats Memphis. Damn, you have no faith in Memphis. Make it close. None.
It's one of those things, man. Lakers, you put them in, doesn't matter what seed, they'll run the table. I'll have the Knicks in 99.
And then 9-10, Golden State, San Antonio. I think we agreed last week Golden State would win that game. So that would set up a Memphis Golden State matchup, which I think Golden State would probably take. So Golden State would be the 8. LA would be a 7. So LA would get Phoenix first round, which I think is what they probably don't want. They probably want Utah. And that would give you a
Utah's back at number 1. I thought Phoenix is number 1 right now.
No, Utah's back at number 1. They're up a game. So it'll be Utah. It'll be Utah Golden State if our predictions come out. Utah Golden State first round, and then Phoenix Lakers first round. And Utah would win that series. See, I almost said it. I said Utah would be Golden State. Now I'm rethinking that. I think Golden State would beat Utah. I have zero faith in Utah. I think an 8-seeded Golden State team would beat Utah in the first round.
See, I don't want to disrespect Utah. They've been doing it the thing this season. It's one of the things we just don't watch them. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm tired of seeing the Warriors and the Pelicans play.
Oh my god!
And now add Dallas too. Dallas was playing. They've had a hell of a lot of games on television.
Oh wait, we had that goddamn that Marvel game. I'm like, what the hell is this shit? I'm like, I don't want to watch this.
So it's like I haven't seen the Utah to really discredit them. So we'll see. I would like to see them, and I want to see them have a little anger to them because everyone's just dissing them. LeBron said, like, when we play 2K, no one plays with Utah, which is an actual fact. It's an actual fact. I've never played against anybody.
Except the problem with Utah is in that game, no one plays with them, but then when you play against them, you get shit on. Because Joe Ingles drops like 30. Donovan Mitchell can't miss a shot. Gobert just flies in with putback. So like no one plays with them, but when you play against them, it's the worst game you play literally in that game.
Yep.
Besides the Atlanta Hawks. I hate them too. In the East, Philly's up by 2 over Brooklyn in the.
I think they got it.
I think
Philly got it. I think Philly got.
So Philly got 1. Philly got 1. Brooklyn 2. Milwaukee 3. Knicks are 4 still. Atlanta 5. Boston 6. Miami 7. Charlotte 8. Indiana 9. Ooh, there's a whole shitstorm in Indiana right now. And then Washington's at 10. And Washington's up 3 on Toronto for the 10th spot. So I think Washington's going to get into the play-in tournament as of tonight.
It's crazy that I think they're seeded 10th right now. They're probably the 7th best team in the East.
Well, it's funny. I'm looking at the standings. Washington's a game back in the loss column to Indiana for 9. For 8, they're 2 games back. So they could move up. I think a Miami-Washington play-in game would be a lot more interesting than Miami-Charlotte. I'm almost rooting for Washington to bump up and see Miami-Washington.
How crazy would that be? The finals, the bubble finals, would have to be playing in the play-in tournament to get in the playoffs this year. Can't make that up.
It will be amazing. I will love it. I really do think. I know Toronto's 3 games back.
I think
Indiana. But I think the Indiana thing, their coach might be getting fired. An assistant coach got suspended. No one likes the coach. The coach is probably going to get fired. I think there's a lot of turmoil in Indiana where I think Toronto, if they might have to win out, and they need some help. But I think Toronto could bump Indiana out.
I have two Indiana hot takes. Well, it's not really a hot take.
Here we go.
It's not really not a hot take. Maybe, just maybe, they shouldn't have fired Nate McMillan. It seems like he knows how. It seems like he knows how to coach. Just ask the Hawks. Just saying.
Well, here's the thing. Do we know why he was fired?
I guess it was the playoffs. No playoff success. I mean, it's his fault that Boston had they had a good squad, and I forgot what was the other reason why. Yeah, it was just a lack of playoff success.
That's what I'm trying to figure out because I'm like, he had a good team. They got to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They always seemed like they were missing something. There was something missing every time. But once again, McMillan doesn't pick the team. The GM, the president picks the team. So he's only coaching what he has. And obviously what he has got him to a certain point.
Yep. They
make the trade. They get Karras. They get all this stuff. But then it's not really working. And the coach doesn't work. So it's one of those instances where if it's not broke, don't fix it. And Indiana just keep fixing it, and it's just not working at this point.
Now it's broken.
It's completely broken. It's completely broken. I do want to talk about the Bucks, the team that you have no faith in whatsoever. They beat the Nets 2 straight. I think, and I know you're going to tell me I'm wrong, I think they might have figured out a blueprint for other teams to look at in how to beat the Nets. What do you think?
It was a nice 2-game winning streak. I felt like the Nets are just riding this. They're riding this thing out. They're like, listen, we don't care if we get 1 or 2. They'll be fine. I think Harden saying that he'd be ready to go for the playoffs, that'll be extra boost. Shout out to Harden. He want to cut out the Knicks out of the crop shot the Knicks out of the New Yorker cover when they had both teams on it. That was cute. But I think the Nets are just riding the wave. They're just trying to get to the finish line. I think Milwaukee's trying to show that, hey, they're not the Utah Jazz, even though they are the Utah Jazz in the Eastern Conference. And I have no faith in the Bucks. I feel like this is all show now, but let them see Miami in the first round. They're going to get punked.
Here's the thing, and I think the Nets inadvertently showed something they shouldn't have showed the other night. For some reason, they had DeAndre Jordan guarding Giannis.
Terrible idea.
And Giannis was just shitting all over DeAndre Jordan. It was bad.
You would have been better off throwing Blake at him.
But I also feel like in the first game they played, Durant missed that 3 that looked like it was going in. So they lost by 3, but then they lost by 6 the 2 days later. I really do think the way they played, they kind of slowed the game down a lot. There was a lot of instances where Milwaukee went half court, where they just had to slow the game down. if you try to get into a foot race with Brooklyn, you're going to lose. Mm-hmm. If you try to outscore Brooklyn, you're going to lose. The best way is, you want to go four corners. You want to go Dean Smith, North Carolina, four corners. Mm-hmm. You want to slow the game down, and you want to go half court, because if the Nets go half court, I feel like it's going to be a lot of dribbling. You get the ball to Kyrie, right? He's going to dribble out the shot clock. He may not be able to pass right away. Durant dribbles a little bit too. Harden might get itchy, get that trigger finger going, and want to shoot too. I feel like when you force them to kind of slow the offense down and run a play, plays aren't being run. It's going to be a lot of ISO ball, and it's going to be a lot of Kyrie. I feel like if Milwaukee showed that, I think other teams in the East can be like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're crashing boards, walk it up, get in our sets, slow the game down. Don't make it 138, 135. Let's make it 102-99, right? And just slow the possessions down and just see what happens and try to run the shot clock down and then force them to run the shot clock down, playing tight defense. Make sure your switches are right. I feel like if you do that, you can beat the Nets.
Only problem is no one the Nets are going to see in the first two rounds have a Giannis. Hell, they don't even have a Brook Lopez, so I think the Nets will be fine. It's when they get to the conference finals if they see Embiid. I definitely think Embiid is definitely taking pointers of what Giannis did to the Nets and saving it for the conference finals.
Well, I feel like the worst possible matchup for the Nets is going to be Philadelphia. I feel like they don't want to touch Philadelphia. I feel like in the whole Eastern Conference, there's not one team. I think Milwaukee kind of showed how to do it, but Milwaukee isn't that team like the Nets don't want to. We'll face them. Yeah. I think Philly's the one team, and which kind of lead us into the next story. I think the Knicks is that one team too, because I feel like the Knicks, I know they've lost to the Nets. All the games have been close. They're having some questionable calls. As a Knicks fan, I'm gonna put it out there, some questionable calls. And I think they just play really hard, and they're not scared of Brooklyn. I think a lot of these Eastern Conference teams, when they see Brooklyn, whether it's Kyrie, whether it's Durant, whether it's Harden, whether it's all three of them, the Knicks don't have that fear like, oh my God, we got to face all three of these guys. The Knicks like, let's go. We got you.
Yeah, and I think yesterday was a bad indication because one thing to know, and this goes back to what I told you last week, I don't like this whole playing the West Coast with the last 2 weeks of the season. It's just bad. It's a bad omen. And I feel like there's no one in the East that could do what Jokić did to them yesterday. So I feel like they don't have a center. The Knicks could definitely exploit that, and they'll be feisty with them. And I don't know how the Nets would pretty much handle that, let alone handle the crowd that's going to be pro Knicks in all those games. I think that's going to get in their heads as well. Especially
if they go to 100% capacity. If that's the thing that
get that for the playoffs, because I think we might be getting near that.
I feel like May 19th was the date that New York, New Jersey, Connecticut was opening back up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the sporting venues will do it, but if it's 100% for playoffs, Lord help Barclays, because it'll be overrun with Knicks fans. It's gonna be disgusting. So hopefully, and listen, me personally, they should be going 100%. They shouldn't be thinking about going 100%. I don't think we're ready for that yet. But if it does, it'll be an advantage Knicks. I just don't think they should do it right now.
Well, we know Dolan's ready for it after what he did to the Rangers. He's ready for it.
Real fast, I'm going to deviate to that because we have a forum where I can just get all this shit off my chest because I got a lot to say. So, in case you didn't know, obviously we're in New York, New Jersey area. James Dolan, owner of the Knicks, owner of the Rangers, owner of Madison Square Garden. The Knicks are good now, right? I'm pretty sure Leon Rose said, Jimmy, leave us the fuck alone. Don't touch, don't bother us. So now Jim Dolan, who can't go on the road and play his shitty guitar in his shitty band and playing shitty music, is now fucking with the Rangers in the middle of a rebuild and fires the president and GM in the middle of a rebuild after you got the number one pick this year, the number one pick last year, the best free agent last season, and you got the best defenseman. So you put together a team of young stars. You missed the playoffs by 5 points in a shortened season. Last year was shortened season as well. And you breaking up the front office after literally one of your best players got mugged on ice because you have been paying attention because you've been so busy fucking with the Knicks. Now you want to come to the Rangers, but I got some ideas, and they're like, no, we don't. Like you literally don't know who's on this team. You haven't looked at a Ranger game since 1992. You probably think you saw Messier and Ice. There is a special place in hell for James Dolan. I'm convinced. There's no stopping in purgatory. He's going straight to hell, and he's hanging out with like Judas, and he's hanging out with all the worst people in the world. He's hanging out down there because that man has no idea what the hell he's doing.
What makes it all worse too is because, like you said, it's because the Knicks are doing good, so you can't pick on the Knicks, and the Garden's not a capacity, so we can't pick on celebrities. So it's one of those things where like he really messed up a good rebuild because, like you said, the Rangers were rebuilding properly. So,
and that's properly. And here's the thing with the rebuild, and we're going to move to the Knicks now. The Rangers did a good rebuild. They figured it out. And they're like, we're going to take our time. We got lucky a couple draft picks. We got the number 1 pick this past season. We got our guy. But then you get the Knicks, and they've been rebuilding since, what, I was in college? It has been over and over and over. And he really he messed with them with the Carmelo trade. He brought in Phil Jackson. So all the moves you literally butt into kind of backfire. I know Carmelo took us to the playoffs. We went around, big whoop. But everything you touch with us turns into shit. So now you're like, oh, they're good. Okay, I'm going to go to the Rangers now and mess with them. I feel like you have a system with the Knicks where they're young, but they also have experience. They're hungry, but they're also kind of like, all right, let's be patient. Let's have some sense. Play the game the right way. And I feel like, to me, if they don't sign a big free agent, I won't care. Just keep doing what you're doing. And it seems like you have a plan, as opposed to when you and I went to the Knicks game, and there seemed to be a plan then, but then they went away from the plan, then went back to the plan. It seems like there's an actual plan in place now.
Yeah. I don't even think there's probably going to be a big free agent you can get this year. I think this summer, it's about what are we going to do with Randle? Like, he's going to be on an extension soon. What are we going to do with Rose? Are we going to, re-sign him for a smaller contract? Are we going to bring in someone else here to run the point? I think those are the realistic questions that Knicks ownership and brass might have to really consider.
Well, speaking of, I'm glad you mentioned that, because Brian Windhorst wrote a really good article for ESPN.com about Randle. And Randle possibly getting a max contract. So a max deal would be, I think, 4 years, 5 years, 140 would be a max for him. So they kind of broke it down with what he would be making. With the max, $34 million in 2022, 2023, $36 million, 23, 24, $38 million, 24, 25, and almost $40 million, 25, 26. The big question is this, because they're going to guarantee his contract next year for 19, so they're going to have him at least next year. Is Julius Randle a max player?
I think so. I think he's an anchor now. He's an anchor you build around. So I would work on giving him the max, if not the max, something close to it.
Here's my issue with the max. I think Julius Randle is a good player. Right? I think he's proved his worth. I think he's an all NBA player. Maybe not first team, definitely second team, third team, whatever. But 35, 36, 38, and 40. Those are the salaries for those years. That's a lot of money. And let's be honest, it's been 1 year.
I think it's this year. I think it's going to get better. I think with a coach like Tibbs and the whole coaching staff, I think it's going to get better. But he needs help. So I figure that's what I'm saying. He's an anchor. You get someone else to play alongside him, play off of him, like a nice, a true point guard. It could work.
That's just a lot of damn money. Like, that's, if you combine next year's contract with the 4-year extension, that's $140 million. Like, and then also that's a lot of money off the books. You obviously don't want to pay tax. Barrett's going to come up eventually. Robinson comes up eventually. And then you look at the rest of the team. I know you and I speak on text, and you're like, Alec Burks, you got to bring him back. Run it back with Alec Burks. I feel like you might have to cut the court because I feel like Burks is one of those players where you would have to overpay him because having a guy like him coming off your bench, guys are going to overpay for him. I think that's going to be a problem.
I agree, but it's a good problem to have. It's a new problem to have.
David Phillips, I don't think he's max worthy. He's doing amazing, but for me, it's all on who the Knicks sign because a superstar will want to play there. Free agency wise, I mean, we talk about Lonzo Ball. I know Kyle Lowry's a free agent. I know they just signed some dude that I don't know, a 4-year contract for some guy. Who would you want to see in New York? Because I know we talk about Lonzo Ball. Would Kyle Lowry be a good player?
He would be, but he's a little long in the tooth. I don't know if I want him. But then if you don't give Randle the max, he becomes like Russell that was with the Nets. Whereas like you dangle this all-star and then you try to trade him and then you mess up the whole chemistry. And I feel like that's probably the route the Knicks would take. But I think the way this team is playing, I wouldn't want to take that route. I would just try to bring complementary pieces and see what you can do there.
So would you – I think the bigger question too with the Knicks is Barrett a 2 or a 3? Because I don't think they figured that out yet.
I think he's a 3.
You think he's a 3?
I think he's a 3. But you're right. They haven't figured that out yet.
So you would have, let's say if he's a small forward, you would have Mitchell, Randle, Barrett has your front court. But then your shooting guard, you don't really have one. Right now they have Reggie Bullock, they got Alec Burks, and then the point guard. I don't think Derrick Rose should start next year. He shouldn't be starting at all. So you almost have to figure out the shooting guard and the point guard situation. And then draft picks, they have 2, but they're all going to suck because we're good and Dallas is going to make the playoffs. Yeah, unless they lose the play-in, then they fall to the lottery. But I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen either.
Well, I'm looking at the free agent list, and we can do this for both teams. Do this for Brooklyn and New York, because I don't think Brooklyn can really do much because they're kind of locked in with a lot of money. But guard-wise, point guard, no Lonzo Ball. Chris Paul is an option. So here's some of the options for free agents. You have Chris Paul, Connolly, Lowry, Goran Dragic, Dennis Schroeder, Patty Mills, Dinwiddie, Lonzo, Avery Bradley, Chris Dunn, and then it just falls apart. TJ McConnell, Ryan Diacono, Brad. It just falls apart after that. But of those names I mentioned, besides Lonzo, besides Lowry, like we talked about, besides Chris Paul, obviously, Patty Mills, Dinwiddie, Avery Bradley. Any of those names are like, especially Bradley's a little cheaper, and you get better defensively with Avery Bradley, but you lose scoring.
Yeah, that's going to be problematic. This is why I'm camping. I'm caping for Lonzo, a young, aggressive point guard to come here. I'll pay Lonzo the money. I wouldn't even worry about all these other guys. Dinwiddie, though, is appealing.
Dinwiddie is not a point. Shout out. Hold on a second. I'm going to give a shout out real quick to Hootie Woody. We love our Joker in Colorado. He's the MVP. We totally agree. He is the MVP of the NBA by far. And NBA, don't screw him. Don't screw him, NBA. He's the MVP. Don't mess with him. Dinwiddie freaks me out because he shoots too much. I feel like you need a point. You need a point guard. Someone who's going to pass first. Not someone who's like...
How many of them in the league?
I mean, Lonzo, Chris Paul. Ricky Rubio. I don't know. There's not a lot left. Ain't a lot left right now.
I think Lonzo to New York.
Well, would you go now? I'm looking at shooting guards now because we said, if Barrett's the 3, we got to look at shooting guards. DeRozan, Oladipo, Fournier, absolutely not. That's really it. Josh Richardson, Norman Powell, who I wouldn't touch, Lou Will, Alec Burks is out there, but he's not a starter. I know you. I don't know. Did you say DeRozan or did you say Oladipo?
I figure Oladipo. Once Riley got a grip on him, I don't see him leaving. I would probably go after DeRozan for a fair contract.
I mean, he's 30. He's long in the tooth too. He's 32. He got a lot of mileage,
but he's more reliable than Oladipo in terms of staying healthy and stuff.
Your thoughts on Tim Hardaway Jr.?
No, we're not revisiting that. No,
I'm running back again. Third time.
Third time is not the charm. No,
third time.
We're good.
Oh man, I would hate that. Would be a move they make just to mess with us real quick. Like, yeah, we got Tim Hardaway back. Like, damn, happen again. Like we talked about, Harden's trying to come back for the regular season. I don't see it happen. Do you think he even should bother coming back for the regular season?
Nah, just game one, try to figure it out.
All right. Speaking of Brooklyn, they are playing Dallas right now with 3:28 left in the second quarter. Brooklyn up by 1 over Dallas. You have Charlotte playing Chicago. Charlotte losing by 12 to Chicago. That's the second quarter. At the half, Toronto's beating Washington in a big game that both teams really need. You have Memphis beating Detroit. Atlanta playing Indiana. Atlanta's down by 10. Later on tonight, you have OKC, Golden State, and then the Clippers playing the Lakers at Staples. That's on TNT. The Net game's also on TNT too. So if you're watching Nets, make sure they're on low, the volume's down. You're watching, listen to us. I want to go to college real fast because there's an interesting article, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So we talk about the ACC being, blue bloods, Duke, North Carolina, those schools. There was a really cool article asking which ACC team would you send your son to based on the coaches. So obviously we had some upheaval in North Carolina. You don't have Roy Williams anymore. You got Heber Davis. You still have Coach K. You got Jimmy Boeheim, Leonard Hamilton in Florida State. Josh Pastner, he's at Georgia Tech. You got a lot of different coaches, a lot of different styles. Where would you send your son to play basketball?
That's tough.
In the ACC.
For me, it's between Florida State and Syracuse.
You go with Syracuse.
I would go with Syracuse.
Wow, I was not expecting that. Tell me why. Tell me why.
I believe Boeheim would help him out in terms of stuff outside of basketball that a young man might need to hear. Whereas if he went to Duke, I don't know what the message Coach K is sending lately because he was so against one and dones, and now that's all he's doing is one and dones, and it's to the point where the program's a little broken, and he won't admit it. Same thing with North Carolina. They're rebuilding now. They're rebuilding that program. Florida State, I like what they're doing. They're trending in the right. They remind me of Clemson of football, where they're getting it right. They're building the foundation to be a powerhouse in the ACC. So those are my two preferences. I'll go with those two. A little more so. Yeah, just like Rudy said, I would probably go with Florida State a little bit more over Coach Boeheim in Syracuse.
See, I'm going to go the opposite. I would go Notre Dame with Mike Bray.
I keep forgetting Notre Dame basketball's in the ACC.
I know.
I keep forgetting
because you think about Notre Dame, and once again, we're going with the coaches, not have they been good? Notre Dame has I think Bray's a really good coach. He definitely cares about his players. You definitely see that. Mm-hmm. I definitely feel like his players are not always – they're not going to be great pros. You get more Notre Dame women's players going pro than Notre Dame men's players.
Unfortunately,
but I think his style of coaching is really tough, but it's coming from a place of he respects you and he only wants the best for you. My issue with Syracuse, Boeheim's a dick. And I have a problem with that because I'm loose with my mouth. Mm-hmm. And if Boeheim will come at me crazy, I'm like, dude, yo, no, we're not playing this game. That's my issue. I think Coach K's too nice. And I feel like my son, I want him to be beat up a little bit. Not literally, but not like Bob Knight style. But I want him to be beat up a little bit and have some pressure on him and push him. I think Coach K at his advanced age is kind of mellowed out a little bit. He's not like yelling at Christian Laettner.
Got 2 medals out.
Well, I mean, and you look at the other coaches. I mean, Boston College. I don't know who this guy is. Clemson. This guy's been to Clemson since 2010. Brad Brownell. I don't know who that guy is. I mentioned Passenger. Chris Mack, who used to coach Xavier. He's at Louisville. He's a really good coach. Jim Larinaga, but who is the uncle of one of my best friends, which I'm like, wow. Jim Larinaga? No way. So he's in Miami. He's a good coach. I'm curious about Hubert Davis because I think him working with Roy Williams for so long, like a decade, I think he might be the perfect guy to run that Carolina program.
I think so too. He's a new voice, but a familiar one at that. Deep rooted within the community. I think he'll do good over there. He's definitely one of those guys that go into coming to your home, selling Notre Dame. North Carolina. I think it would work. I think it would work a little bit.
Which is funny because it didn't work with St. John's. St. John's, it ended because Chris Mullen couldn't handle it.
Yeah, that was shocking that he couldn't handle that part of the job.
Well, listen, I have a hot take. I don't think St. John's is ever going to reach where they were in the 80s. I think it's done. I think they're going to be middle of the road, Big East team. There's going to be a lot of NITs. They're going to sprinkle in an NCAA tournament appearance here and there, but they're never going to be what they were in the 80s into the early 90s.
So we're not even giving them a Georgetown 2020, resurgence. Mm-hmm. Nothing.
They want the Mike Anderson to coach. Like Mike Anderson has no need. It's like Mike when they hired Mike Jarvis in like 94.
Oh, God, that was terrible.
Mike Jarvis had no ties to the area. And you bring him, and Mike Jarvis literally pissed off all the New York coaches. Hence, they got no New York players for like 10 years. Mike Anderson is from the South. Mike Anderson coached in Arkansas. Like, he's from Arkansas and Missouri. He has no ties to the New York, New Jersey area, and you bring him in. That's a sign of desperation. Like, you bring in a local coach. Like, Kevin Willis, not a Seton Hall guy, but he's from the area. He's from the tri-state area. He knows New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. If you want to keep your guys home, you got to get a local coach. St. John's keep going out. They keep going out, and it's not working.
There's one man who I think could fix the program, and he might as well look at it. He might as well look at it because he's never going to NBA coach a job again. And that's Mark Jackson. He's the only guy who can fix the program.
Poor Mark. I still feel bad for that man. They screwed that man so badly. So WNBA season starts soon. They had some preseason questions. Right now, the Aces, in Las Vegas Aces, they're number one in the league. They're predicted to win the championship, essentially. The Liberty, not so much. What's the ceiling for the Liberty? Because, listen, they're still a young team. Honestly, I'm still a little pissed off they traded Kia Nurse because I really love Kia Nurse, and I love the way she plays, and I think her shot was getting a lot better when she returned from injury. What's their ceiling after going 2-20 last year?
I think their ceiling is try to get to 500, be competitive, and it's still a young team. It's still a young team trying to find themselves. I'm also pissed off that they replaced the mascot. I saw that on their Twitter page. Yeah, check out their Twitter page. Check out their Twitter page. It's hilarious. They showed the old mascot leaving the Garden, heading to Barclays, passing off the Liberty ball to the new mascot, which is it's kind of like an elephant. Like, it's like a Dumbo thing.
Wait, hold on. Keep talking.
It would work if Barclays Centers was really close to Dumbo, but yeah, it's hilarious.
God.
Check it out. Look at it on Twitter. It's hilarious.
I'm looking at it right now. I know this is terrible podcasting and radio, but I got to look at this because this is bothering me. Why would you get rid of that mascot? That's like the Mets get rid of Mr. Met.
Yeah, Mr. Met. Unless he didn't want to troop into Brooklyn, he did troop it. The mascot did troop it to White Plains, Westchester County Fair. So
he should have stayed at the Garden at that point.
Yeah.
All right, there's a whole video. Hold on, I gotta skip to the video and see what this is going. It's a fucking elephant.
We had an elephant.
Yeah, I'm done. Okay, I'm over this. It's a fucking elephant. Okay, I'm done. Maddie, we love you. Great job. We're gonna miss you. So Chicago Sky is the one team I'm curious about. They went 12-10 last year. Candace Parker goes back home. How big a difference does Candace Parker make to the Sky? Because I do feel like she still has something left in the tank, but she's not Candace Parker from 5-6 years ago. Does she put them in the playoffs and make them a favorite?
I think she could help them get to the playoffs, but I feel like her season in Chicago is going to be very similar to Dwayne Wade's going back home, where like they're going to feel the pressure of putting the organization on their back, and it might not be, she might, like you said, she might not have that much left in the tank to be able to carry it. But I definitely think they're going to be in the playoff mix as well.
Washington Mystics, Tina Charles. Apparently, there were some questions raised about her in playing with the Liberty and saying how she wasn't a good leader and she wasn't able to defer. And Tina Charles responded with, "Did you see what team they were putting out there in New York and who was?" So Tina Charles went at him. Elena Deladon she's had 2 major back surgeries. They both missed last season. I think they opted out. Mm-hmm. How do the Mystics look this year with Deladon and Charles coming back from not playing? Deladon having major back surgeries. They won the title a couple years ago. Are they close, or do you think this is a year where the star players have to get their legs back?
They're gonna have to get their legs back. I think they're gonna start off slow. I think they're gonna be very similar to the Wizards, where they start off real slow and then get hot and then probably cool off a little bit. But I don't know. I don't think I see them making the playoffs. I don't think I see them making the playoffs.
The other big team this offseason has been Atlanta Dream. New ownership, Renee Montgomery, co-owner, former player, co-owner, now vice president team as well. The question ESPN has, I think they might have the best ones. They might have the best new ones. The question ESPN asks, how will the Dream react with so much leadership change? Do you think their rally around what happened and what they did, what they were able to accomplish? They pushed the owner out. They were able to get their owner pushed out, get one of their own to buy into the team and help run the team. Do you think that will invigorate this team? Because 7-15 in the bubble, maybe they need this to show like, hey, we can do some work. All that distraction is gone. Let's get to work now.
I think not only do the teams going to rally against them, I think the whole league is going to be better off because of what the Dream did. And I think, the Sparks for a long time was the most popular team in the WNBA. I think Atlanta took a lot of that luster and thunder from them, especially with everything they did throughout the year. So I think between that, the new uniforms, the new attitude, and new ownership in place, I think a lot of eyes are going to be on the Dream more so than any other team in the WNBA this year.
And finally, we got to talk about the Sparks because our girl, Ariella Garantes from Rutgers, is playing there. The Agumekes, both sisters, they're there. They lost some players. They got a really young team. 15-7 last year. They got a lot younger. I don't see them making the playoffs this year just because of the youth that they have on this team right now. Yeah,
I think they are. No clear-cut leader. I think it's going to be problematic for them to compete and navigate through the Phoenixes and the Vegas and all those teams out there. Yeah, I don't see them. I think them and the Liberty are now in the same boat in terms of the youth movement, and we got to see where we go.
And last question about WNBA. This is our preview. 18th season for Sue Bird. How much longer does she have? Because I feel like she can just play for another 10 years. I feel like she's just ageless at this point.
Yeah, she does seem ageless. I'll give her 2 more years.
So I think she'll at 20.
I think she retire. I think she leaves when she gets a coaching opportunity in the NBA, not the WNBA.
That's my question: NBA or WNBA?
Yeah, I think she's waiting for that NBA coaching opportunity. I don't know if it's going to come.
I think that's kind of the issue. I feel like we're still waiting on Becky Hammon to get the spot. And I feel like there's always conversation. She's always interviewed and she's always like, oh, Becky Hammon's part. I think when that wall falls, that's when you're seeing the floodgates open, more female assistant coaches and more coaches in general being put around the league. But we're still waiting for Becky Hammon. I feel like the longer we wait, I'm starting to doubt whether it's even going to happen now.
Right. So there's only one team that's going to take a chance on it, and it's probably going to be the Spurs. But what if we finally do get that expansion? And they've been talking about expansion to Seattle for God knows how long. What if she becomes the Seattle head coach? That could be in play.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, the NBA expansion, they keep dangling this carrot to Seattle.
It's going to happen. I think
they keep pulling it.
I think COVID probably accelerated that process, but I definitely think it's going to happen in a couple of years.
And please, Supersonics.
It has to be Seattle. It has to be Seattle or Vegas. It has to be.
Yeah, you got to do it that way. The good part, 100 telecasts on television of WNBA games, ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, CBS Sports Network, CBS Television Network, so CBS Broadcast, they're showing, and NBA TV as well. So 100 games on TV this year on national, like you have national TV, you have cable, NBA TV. So they might be listening to us with the exposure conversation.
Hey, listen, man, I put in for my credentials again. Let's see what happens. I haven't heard anything yet. Hopefully I'll be back at Barclays.
You're not going to miss Westchester?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
12 games on Twitter and 20 on Facebook as well. So they also have 32 games online as well. So it's going to be a big season for WNBA. Hootie Woody, I think he agreed with me. Boeheim's a total dick. Outside of Melo, I feel like he may have held some kids back with his coaching style. Got a championship, though, so we'll give him that. So I agree with that. I agree. Melo kind of gave him that clout.
And we're not even going to go Coleman. We're not going to go Wallace.
Pearl. You go Pearl.
Pearl, yeah.
Pearl. I mean, but think of Pearl was the 80s. Mm-hmm. Coleman was late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Carmelo's early 2000s.
Yep.
So Wallace, he's had one. Wallace was mid-90s? Mid-90s.
Yeah.
So he's had like one or two good players a decade, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's it. He sucks. So we got to talk about blood and guts from last night. If you don't watch wrestling, you have no idea what we're talking about, you may leave. It's okay. Your thoughts on blood and guts and the really weird ending that people are pissed off about now.
The ending was it was a bad botch. You know, we got to do better. However, I did love the whole threading him off the cage thing. I thought that was a great angle. You know, is he one of the top heels in wrestling, period?
Yes.
And it's amazing to me how quickly he's ascended up to the ranks. Like, I was watching a video, I completely forgot. He was like a NXT groupie back in the days. To where he's at now. It's crazy.
He tried off a Tough Enough that didn't call him. I'm like,
yeah,
wow.
It's crazy. He's like the Miz, but like to the next level.
Well, I love it when I think it was on Twitter. I think some kid tweeted at him like, it was my kid's birthday, and the kid's like 12 and he had AEW cookies. And MJF just straight up said, fuck your kid. I was like, yo, he's a heel all the time. He never turns it off. I love this guy. My issue with the match was this. I don't even blame him for the end segment. I think I blame the camera work. I feel like them not knowing better. Because you know what he's falling into. You know we're looking very closely because that damn barbed wire match is still in our heads.
Yep.
So in my head going into it, I was like, you better make good on this. This is on you guys. So you had experienced producers. You got experienced people in the truck. Hey, don't show it. Show him falling. Show MJF saying thank you, and then go right to MJF and don't show it, or show it from like a different angle where it doesn't look as bad. But I think they messed up with the camera angles and the camera shots.
I agree.
But it was a good match. Like
they need to get to the Vince McMahon camera guys.
Well, no, not all those goddamn jump cuts. I get sick.
Yeah, I think you're not a ham with the jump cuts now. Yeah, they get
I get motion sickness watching Raw when I watch Raw because it's just like, okay, camera 2, camera 1, and it just jumps. I'm like, oh, I can't. I turned it off. The match was good. Having a cage, the War Games cage with a top, that was my thing. I was like that, and the fact that you have to win through surrender. That's the War Games rules. Like you have to make your opponents submit and surrender. I like that little touch they had to it. So I had no problem with the match. It was a good match. The idea of them saying, hey, listen, guys, it's a one-match show. So all these matches you're going to watch on the screen, because all the audio from that first hour was live audio from the crowd watching the matches on the big screen. And then the second hour, they went live. So they said 5 people asked for refunds, but they gave them refunds. But everybody else was there. So I'm like, it seemed like it was like a live show, but the crowd noise was from the crowd live watching the tape matches. I'm like, that's crazy that they pulled that off.
I'm surprised how well they pulled that off, to be honest, And
that the fans were receptive to it, because I don't know how I'll feel, because I knew it was a 1-match show, but I wouldn't know how I'll feel going there and just sitting and watching TV for an hour in front of a gigantic cage.
It would have been tough. It would have been a lot to digest.
In other news, Daniel Bryant, now a free agent. Does he stay or does he go?
There's no way Vince McMahon's going to let him walk to AEW. No way. He will back up the bricks truck. Be like, listen, you want to be a part-timer? No problem. I think Daniel Bryan would be best suited to go to NXT.
Would Vince let him go to NXT, though? That's the question.
He would have no choice. It's either NXT or AEW. He's not going to let him walk to AEW. No chance.
Well, here's the thing. I think now AEW hit 1 million again yesterday. Number 1 in cable for the night was NXT. It was AEW last night. So that whole firing shit that he did, I don't think no one's getting fired anytime soon. Because I think he realizes, like, so they're unopposed, and now they're starting to hit 1 million consistently. I think like 4 of the last 5 weeks. I don't think anyone's getting fired. I think that pay raise that they had last year is going to start happening again. And he's throwing money at everybody to keep them. Because I feel like AEW is not where WWE is yet, but I think they're getting there slowly.
They're getting there slowly, and they're like maybe 4 signings away, and Daniel Bryan is one. They get Daniel Bryan, somehow you back the bricks truck for a CM Punk or Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe's probably going there.
I think Samoa Joe's the wild card. I think if he's healthy, and listen, they got Sting, they got Christian. I'm pretty sure that doctors aren't just letting guys do what the hell they want.
Right.
If they can pull off a Samoa Joe and do it right, there's not one instance in AEW where they booked someone wrong. There's been instances where there's been some fuck ups, like technically and stuff like that, but the booking hasn't been terrible. And I feel like they give the guys so much freedom. Samoa Joe's like, I got an idea. And it would be a good idea. He'd be like, okay, let's roll with it.
Speaking of booking, do you got Rusev winning the TNT title next week? Because I do.
Yep. Well, there's an out because Darby got thrown down some stairs. So that's your out right there. Oh, he's hurt. He's beat up. And he loses the match. It'll be a 4-minute. It will be like when Brody Lee beat Cody and just demolished him. It'll be kind of like a repeat like that. It'll be like a 4 or 5 minute match. Miro just mess him up and be done with it and be over. But he's definitely winning that belt.
All right, makes sense.
So I'm very curious about all this. And their pay-per-view Double or Nothing, they're going full capacity, 5,500.
Wow.
But and like they're outdoors, so I can kind of get with that. I'm like, you know what? It's an outdoor venue. I'm like, I don't like the 100% thing, but at least it's outside, I guess. It's open air. It is Florida. Florida do what the hell they want anyway. So go at it.
It's probably 90% doing SummerSlam outside.
Where? Like, where would you like AC? Like, where are you going?
He might surprise us. He might go. He might stay right there where they're at in Tampa. Open up the stadium.
God, I hope it rains again. I hope it rains again. Jay, as always, great show, bro.
Likewise.
All right, so the podcast of this show will be up tomorrow. Starting next week, we're going to be having our podcast shifted over to the Just Hoop Talk podcasting network because we're here with them on YouTube. Let's be with them on podcast too. And then, like I said last week, in the fall, Jason and I were kind of reconfiguring our podcast network a little bit, and we're going to start some new podcasts and get some good ideas. So, we'll let you know when that actually kicks off too. Mm-hmm. So for Jason Cordner, I'm Kahlil Thomas. Thank you for watching. Thank you for enjoying the show. Thank you for everybody in the chat. The comments was good. What's happening? Happy Mother's Day to Mama Cordner.
Thanks. Yours as well. Happy Mother's Day to your lovely wife.
She had one shot with me last night and then went upstairs. I was like, you suck. You punked out, bro. What happened to you? So for all mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. For Jason, I'm Kahlil. Thank you for watching. We will see you next Thursday night here on the Just Hoop Talk YouTube channel. Peace.
Peace.